mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on the what? Yeah. You know I be on the what? Man on a mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on the what? Yeah.
Laughing because we're making faces. You guys listen to the podcast, you're missing out if you're not seeing the dumb pre-roll faces that Dale and I make. What's up, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Ride the Rebellion podcast. I'm your host, Drew Hall. I'm Drew Hall. With me today is the king of the emo turndown.
It's new. It's a new thing I'm trying.
You just cry about it midair.
Yeah, and cut myself.
Oh, well.
Well, sometimes if I don't land it, it's cuts.
Yeah, there you go.
Cuts deep.
Dale Boyd of Dale Boyd's Schwartz Management. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, man. It's been a minute.
You've never been here before.
Never.
We're excited about this episode. We have Erin MacMahon. She is the El Presidente of HAMR. When I was a kid, there was a thing called HAMR films. They were not pornography. They were like these weird sci-fi, garbagey, low-budget movies. So that's all I can think about. But unlike HAMR films, HAMR in Huntsville Area Mountain Riders is ultra rad. In fact, the biggest takeaway from, or why we're so excited, is they're doing, she has led them to do so many crazy new things, and they're developing new lines. And there's a whole lot that we can't wait to talk about. That's super exciting on that side of things. You spent a little bit of time with her at Bump and Grinds.
Actually, just met her at Bump and Grind,
There
which
you
was
go.
awesome. Segue as well. Bump
Yeah.
and Grind was awesome. We'll
Yeah.
talk about that right now.
Yeah, might as well.
So we did. We showed up. We showed out. The Ride the Rebellion crew came in. We dominated some enduro racing.
Yeah,
and
we sure did.
It's not a fluff piece. We actually did dominate the old people categories. It's fine to be old people categories.
I didn't get to go. I rode this past week. I went up and saw Dirty Uncle Chase and spent some quality time with your dirty uncle, and had a good time. Shout out to Gabe's body parts that he left on the trail. Poor Gabe ate shit 10 minutes in. Anyway, but I was telling this saying I want to ask you some bump stuff. But when I went up there, I purposely brought two jerseys. I brought the podcast jersey. I was like, in case anybody sees me, that way they can worship me. So I wore the podcast jersey because I rode solo on Friday. It was delightful. Having never ridden Oak Mountain, I got to say I've ridden the enduro stuff a lot, but Oak Mountain is a blast. And I think it is a hidden gem that is often forgotten, or some people are rolling their eyes because they know, but I'm just saying, shout out to the bump crew, the years of years. I wish I could do an oral history of it. Some of those trails I was riding were so modern feeling, but I know that they were hand cut or cut by, I forget the guy's name, Billy something, maybe. Anyway, the dudes that built it, but shout out to that. But then, just to add insult to injury to your point about racing, I wore the race jersey the next day when I rode with Chase. Just a reminder, a reminder. Flatlanders can do things.
Hey,
so
we did
about that business.
Yeah, so we had a pretty large group of people. I don't even know how many, including some new people that we met. Joe and Jennifer, shout out
wearing the jersey,
rocking the jerseys from Bogue Chitto area. Another shout out to our sponsor, Toby Cortez with Summit Bike Academy.
Yep,
always putting people.
He's a patron.
He is a patron.
He's a patron of the arts.
We'll talk
more
about
like
him
patron
in a
of
minute.
the arts.
Also, like that environment of Bump and Grind was really cool.
Yeah.
We had fun. Eric Hagan obviously was there, and he's a blast. Like, we hung out in our tent most of the day. Just everybody that came by, we invited them in, and it was a great environment, a great atmosphere. And the bump people, like you said, a true testament to them and their dedication to making something awesome. It is continuing a tradition. It was a Dirty 30, so
that's right.
Continuing an awesome tradition.
In talking with Chase a little bit, we were talking. Sometimes when he and I ride or spend time together, we end up talking business, and it was interesting to hear. He seemed more chipper this year. There was like a little less.
Don't try to ruin his persona.
There was a little less hatred. I got to say, from everything I've heard though, and including just in general, it sounded like it was one of the better events that we've been to in a bit. And I know that that's not many, but again, as a team or as a riding group, whatever the hell we are, it sounded like it was really good. We had a lot of people podium. We had people get close to podiuming. We had some people on their first time ever. So, I mean,
yeah,
we got to give shouts to Jonathan for.
Yeah, Jonathan did amazing.
Yeah. I mean,
it was his first ever race. Podiumed
on
got third.
Race. Yeah.
And Pat came back and redeemed himself from last year's Bump and Grind.
That's right.
And got on the podium.
That's exactly right.
Phil Wilborn
Yeah.
shout out. He won his age group.
Yeah.
He would have beat all of us Reb members.
Yeah. I mean, they did have wheelchairs, so it's cool.
Ah, oh my goodness.
That's what you get for not listening, Phil.
He
Remember
listens.
that? I'll
I bet
never
he
forget.
listens.
I'll never forget. No, he just doesn't listen to me. So he didn't hear that statement.
Oh.
He never heard it.
He didn't hear the
anything I
wheelchair
said.
part.
Yeah.
I can't get my emo hair fixed.
You're just obsessed.
I cannot look at it. It's like the most email. I don't
Just
know.
let's go ahead and Superman.
I can't because it's bad.
You guys,
My
this
vanity.
is the most vanity episode we have ever experienced.
I'm so vain.
Yeah, but overall, good event.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Was there
Carrie
any-
got on the podium?
Yeah,
also,
Carrie podium.
shout out Carrie.
Carrie
Joe,
Countdown.
our new friend and adjacent riding teammate.
Yep.
He got on the podium. He knocked the Todd off the podium, which
Yeah.
it's fine. Todd
Right.
did great. I finished on the podium, so hey, it was great. We had a ton of fun,
Yeah,
and
it
we
was
all had
good.
Reb jerseys, so it made us look like we were legitimate. And Dirt Camp was like, "Who are these idiots?"
That's right.
Why Dirt Camp has
The
all
only
of
thing
fast
missing
kids.
from that, though, of course, was our good friends over at BTR who were at some other major event. You didn't see a lot of the red and black,
Yeah,
but you did see a lot of the neon pink and purple Zach Morris style jersey that we've been rocking
That's
for
right.
Rev Season 3. So hate to not see BTR there, but happy that they were out there. I'm sure they smashed it, whatever they were doing. So shout out to BTR. And again,
yeah. Thanks for
everything
giving us a
being sponsor.
chance.
Yeah,
Thanks for giving us the old folks a chance of winning.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And again, if you haven't been up there and talked to him, Jody and his team are fantastic. The stockyard is fantastic. There's a lot of things going on. Be paying attention for more stuff to come down the pipeline. We actually think there's almost like in Alabama, there's a Robert Trent Jones golf trail. And I really feel like we could have the Reb Crew bike trail where you either start in Birmingham, or now we're going to include HAMR in this conversation, but you could start up in Huntsville and work your way down, or start at the very bottom and work your way up.
That'd be a good. It'd be cool
It'd be
because now
cool.
we have friends of the family, friends of the podcast everywhere that
Yeah.
people could tap into and be like, "Hey, let's do on the Reb podcast. Take me around town, show me what's up."
It's all super solid.
And Chase will destroy your legs.
Yeah, and Chase, he took me on a quite the beefy one, but it was well worth it. It was a great ride. Yeah, so obviously to tidy up our sponsor side of things, the last two bits we want to shout out, and obviously get well wishes to his recovery, which is Kevin Black at Man of War Tattoo, opening a new shop, I hear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see where that is. I don't know where it is, or
It's scary. It's scary because we don't know.
Yeah.
He's going to take us down some dirt road.
yeah, no, it's going to be like on some crazy.
No, we have to drive him though.
Yeah.
So it's going to be even more weird
It's-
because he cannot drive.
Driving. It's there's a Driving Miss Daisy joke, but I couldn't work it out in my brain fast enough. No, and
It's
that's
okay.
probably dated.
Mhm.
Although our podcast age is like enough to get that joke.
Yeah, like when you said hammer, I was just thinking MC Hammer time.
Oh yeah, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Because that's mine.
I had to drop some film knowledge,
Yeah.
bring it into play. All right. With that being said, we didn't hit on Run and Try, so shout out to Erin.
Yeah.
Always shout out to
Still
Erin.
keeping us healthy.
Yeah, keeping us in the vibe to move. And
Bug Chitto, really cool. Hey, real
you
quick,
talk
if you
about
get
that.
a chance, head over to Bug Chitto, get a hold of Toby or Steve, and they will show you around their new, amazing, built by Backyard Trail Builder Seth, wooden stuff. It's just it's like an amusement park now. There's so much for everybody.
Yeah,
Literally
it's-
for everybody. My son did 25 million miles of pump tracking. And then he did the teeter totter stuff. He did some things I was surprised about, but you just have to go to see it. I can't even explain it. My mom was on the phone. She's like, "Well, what did you do?" I'm like, Mom, I can't tell you. Like, I don't know how to put it into words.
Yeah, it is definitely.
It looks fake on video, film, everything. It looks fake. Trio Behind Bars was there too, making us all adults look stupid because they're little kids that really, really rip. Even the little girl went down the big thing. The
Good
big
grief.
new so they built Bogue Chitto's logo in wood, and she went down it.
That's incredible.
And a dude, adaptive cyclist, on a adaptive cycle, laid down. His legs don't work. Casey, I argued. I kept saying he doesn't have legs. She said he does have legs. I'm like, I get it, he has legs, but
Yeah.
he cannot pedal. He pedals with his hands,
Right.
which is incredible.
And he smashed it.
Yeah, and he jumped the gap.
Care Bear
Yes.
smashed it. Lots of people smashed
Yes, it was awesome. So shout out to Bogue Chitto and everything Toby's doing, and Norba. So
Yeah. So if you have a chance, head over and check that out. I don't know. I think there's limitations on, I think the skills park's open, but some things are special event.
yep.
So you might want to check with Tobes, hit up Norba or hit up Toby. And the best deal would probably be if you hit up Toby for a class and then you're like, hey, Tobes, while I'm here, can I hit the whale tail or whatever it is?
Yeah, when is Summit Bike Academy skinnies class?
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna need that because I'm not very good at it.
No, it's not weird.
Those North Shore skinnies are not Dale Boyd's specialty.
Nope, they are a challenge.
No.
With that being said, here's Aaron. I wonder if she's an Aaron. She's probably an Erin.
She's an Erin.
Oh, Erin. Here's Erin. As promised, here is Erin MacMahon, like Ed McMahon. We just had this conversation. Erin is El Presidente of HAMR up in Huntsville area. Yeah. And so this is a typical Reb interview. I'm just gonna tee it off. So, Erin, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Good to be here. I wish I was here in person, but you know.
No, we do too. We always like it when the guests can come down and hang out in the studio, but ride our stuff. Yeah. But depending on how this conversation goes, maybe we'll just flip the script. And I just told Dale, one of our clients just expanded from Birmingham into Huntsville. And I was like, hey, we're going to have to go to Huntsville. So we'll just bring the gear with us and we'll just do a big like HAMR show up there and do something super fun. So
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So let's just jump in and let me just ask you this, like, what's your bike story? Like, how did you end up before we land in the Presidente spot, you obviously didn't just get to there without riding a bike for a little bit. How did you end up on a bicycle? Like what happened there to get you into mountain biking?
Sure. Yeah. I actually started life as an equestrian, right? I rode horses from age 5 all the way through college, and was actually on Auburn's equestrian team in college, and got out of college and realized horses are freaking expensive, right? So there's got to be something cheaper to do. And wound up running, right? We worked out with Auburn's football strength and conditioning coaches while we were there. And I kind of figured out, hey, I could actually move pretty decently on 2 legs. I don't have to have the horse under me to do that. And so like most runners, I went through the litmus test of injuries, right? IT bands, knees, whatever else. And, on one of those injury breaks, I had a friend who was like, oh, you should try cycling. So I started on a road bike and hated that for the first 6 months or so, but was in a women's group that I really liked. And the head of that women's group was Grace Ragland. I don't know if you guys know that name. So Grace was a big deal mountain biker, just absolutely loved it. She was really involved with skills clinics and things in the Huntsville area. And she was like, Erin, you rode horses, those skills transfer really well to mountain biking. You should give that a try. And I did that, and also hated that the first couple of times because it's hard and the Huntsville trails are not beginner friendly, especially at the time, right? But kept with it and decided after a while, like, okay, yeah, this is really cool. It is hard, but it's worth it.
Yeah. So we went up for a shoot and we were up there and it's Monte Santo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Monte Santo. And we were all like, I was prepped to ride. I had my bike with me. I was ready to go. And then I was leaving right after that to go on vacation. And I had a chance to go see my brother who I hadn't seen. So I bailed. But I didn't get to, and no, it rained. That's what it was. It rained the day.
Because I was going to go run. I went to run and it was raining too. So we didn't get to do that either.
So we dipped. So neither one of us have ever ridden it. So all I know about it is that it's rocky and it's pretty challenging. And what I was told is it's a little more biased towards tech than flow. Is that kind of where you're at right now?
Totally true, right? We've been that's been the challenge, is introducing more flow to the area because, you have folks who are experiencing that elsewhere. And as Huntsville grows, we're getting folks who are moving here from other parts of the country that's what they're used to riding. Like mountain biking to them is flow trails. And they get here and what's with all the rocks? Make the rocks go away. And obviously you can't do that. So what we've been trying to do, and actually what we're working on right now, we've got a crew up there this evening that I'm a little sad. I didn't realize that was going to be happening today, is finishing up this massive wall ride that we're putting on one of 2 brand new, like downhill jump line flow trails that are going in at Monte Santo. So we're getting there.
So talk about that. Like, so what is how do you get to that spot? Cause I think that'll probably relay back to your role as president, like how did you get to that spot to where, because those trails ain't cheap. We know that much, right?
They're definitely
Yeah,
not. No.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's been the thing that's been missing here in the Huntsville area since flow trails became like the buzzword in mountain biking, right? And you get beat up about it. Well, why can't we have that? And it's like, well, guys, because like our terrain doesn't really support that easily. But you get beat up enough about it and people want to ride it. I want to ride that stuff, right? Like tech is fun, but sometimes just going and hitting some jumps and like not having to think about your line as much it's nice. So we started, I guess, 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, we've got guys who have walked like every inch of the mountain for decades, right? And so they had kind of already started drafting up several years ago, kind of a master plan with just general areas that they had picked out. Like, okay, we think this kind of trail could go in here. We think we can do a connector trail here. We think that these things make sense. And I guess it was about 2.5 or 3 years ago that we presented that to the state park as kind of like a master plan, right? Hey, this is what we're thinking. Obviously, we're not going to do all of this because we don't need this entire mountain just covered over with trail. We want some of it to be natural. But what do you guys think? What can we do out of what we've got here that's proposed? And kind of highlighted a couple of areas out of that. And then from there, we went and started like fundraising. And I actually, one of the first things that I did when I took over as president was stand up a grant writer position. We had just one guy who was doing he was the head of our trail committee. He was also doing a lot of our grants for us in the background. And he's one person and he already probably fits in like 40 hours worth of work in, a 2-day period, kind of thing. So it's like, well, why don't we make you our first grant writer? We'll fund somebody else who can kind of help to take care of the maintenance side of the house. We just need you to go find us money. And that worked pretty well. So we got a couple of grants out of that and built a couple of trails with Preston York out of Flow Motion Trails and with some of the state park crew actually as a test run. All the while still kind of fundraising and getting ready for, the next thing. And finally pulled the trigger maybe 6 months ago to get Barry Smith in with his crew to do these 2 flow trails. And that went through a very big iteration process. We finally had him on schedule, at the beginning of this year. And then we had the monsoon from hell and freeze thaw cycle from hell that hit the area. So that delayed everything for about a month. And then we were about ready to go again. And we got a new state park manager that came in. So we told him, hey, by the way, starting next week, he's brand new to the job and is just, drinking out of a fire hose with all the things that he's got to learn. And we're like, oh, and by the way, we're putting in $75,000 worth of new trails starting next week. And he was like, whoa, pump the brakes. You're doing what? Where? So then we delayed things about another month to kind of get him cozy with it and walk through where we already were. So, it had a few delays built into the process, but yeah, we got here.
Yeah. Have you noticed, because obviously there was people there before you were there, that were riding, and I think a lot of communities deal with this in the progression of things because, progressing to a flow trail from a traditional cross-country mindset or something like that is really hard for some people to comprehend. Hey, we already have these trails. We've been riding them for a million years. Why do we need something different?
Oh, yeah.
And I know that Huntsville is obviously growing magnificently with new people moving in. And we've had the talk down here that we need 15,000 people with different brains to move into Mobile to make it better. Literally.
Sure.
Maybe not just for mountain biking, but for the culture
in general. Absolutely.
So you guys have that going for you, but was it hard to get the OGs on board with these kind of things? Because it's been hard for us.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have a whole lot of our kind of OG guys who still sit on the board. Some of our OG guys now go out to Bentonville and hit stuff in Bentonville all the time with guys who are, young enough to be their kids and things. Cause they're like, oh, okay, this is cool. But but yeah, so some of the older members who are just like, I don't understand. I rode like all of these tech trails with 26-inch wheels
Yeah,
and, like just a little bit of suspension in, my headset. And that was it, like, fully rigid. Otherwise, I don't understand why you people can't take your, 160 mil of travel bike on this stuff that already exists. That's a mindset. And I think that the only thing that you have to do is keep that balance and say, hey, you guys, like the rack tech isn't going away. It's still
Right.
here. You can still ride it. And if you really don't want to go hit the flow trails, you don't have to. Nobody is forcing you to go ride that stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I get it. And I get totally tired of like people that want to stand in the way of progress. Like it's so often, and I know that we deal with it. I complain about it on here. Like this is my platform to complain about it because it's constant.
Yeah.
I get so tired of hearing, well, we've been doing this for 30 years. So like you guys are doing something very progressive in an area that otherwise didn't have it. So that's why I wanted to ask, because I know Chase kind of has forced his opinion on the bump people pretty well.
That's
and
right.
it's working there as well. So
Yeah.
I just wondered.
And then you of course have, and you do still have to play. It's not just the mountain bike community that you have to think of. Like, the trails, most of the trails within the state park are multi-use, multi-purpose trails. And so these are actually going to be the first like mountain bike only trails in the state park. Everything else is multi-purpose. So you did also kind of have to play that game a little bit and say, okay, yes, this is something that we're giving to just mountain bikers and not the rest of the community, but we are a mountain bike organization and we are the ones funding it. So maybe that makes sense.
Right.
Like, give us just this little bit. And then the other thing, of course, is that this has pulled all of our resources off of doing our usual trail maintenance work, right? Like we haven't hardly touched a trail for anything other than these new builds in months. And, that's something that I think after we get through this from both a fundraising standpoint, we'll be out of money by then, and a land manager relations and community relations standpoint, you do kind of have to do these things in cycles and phases and then recognize that we've now got a lot of deferred maintenance because we've been working on these new builds. And so to make sure that our OG guys who are still, loving on those old trails by riding them, not by, working on them necessarily. We got to go make them happy again too, by actually going and doing some of the maintenance on the stuff that already exists.
What is your membership like? I mean, obviously you're talking about fundraising, but what is your membership like? Like you guys are a fairly large organization now, and some of that's from the influx. So twofold question. What's the membership roster look like? But the other side of this is, I mean, they've shown now in studies, and I try and find non-biased studies. It's kind of hard, but shown in studies that cycling, specifically cycling, and that includes both road and mountain, but cycling is a request from a lot of engineers or brainy people. They want to go out and do this kind of stuff. And obviously Huntsville being Rocket City and all that magic, like you guys have a lot going on. You have a lot of tech going on that's not just rocket related. It's a boom town.
For sure.
What is that like? Like, have you seen that influence come across? So what is the roster and what's been the growth from the influx of people? What has that been like?
Yeah, no, that's totally valid. It's, we're sitting at about 450 members right now. We hovered around that 400 member mark for a long time, just like right below it, right over it, and pushed over that and to 450, I think within the past 6 months. So I think that these new trails do have a lot to do with that too, though. We've got our kids programs, and the kids programs bring in a lot of kids, and their families that, are willing to be members, eager to be members. And so that's helped. But then you do also get this other demographic in that didn't feel supported before, right? What are you doing for me? And so by offering this, you bring that in. But yeah, as Huntsville itself grows, the folks that we have moving here, it's absolutely a selling point for companies, for the government, for NASA or whatever, to be able to say, yeah, and, right out of your backyard, you can go ride your bike either on trails or greenways or whatever. And hit just a pretty beautiful part of the country that's becoming less of a hidden gem, but until recently was kind of a hidden gem.
One thing I was gonna say, I mean, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. So yeah,
It,
so it's beautiful. It's the folks who are moving in also kind of are coming from places where trail work was expected of them. They're coming from California, they're coming from Colorado, they're coming from Utah, Arizona, places like that, where like it's not just a riding community, it really was a trail work and trail maintenance community. So a lot of like our volunteers now are folks who are relatively new to the area and new to HAMR, but they're like, well, of course you do trail work because that's what you do if you're going to ride your bike. And that's cool.
It's interesting. It's interesting because you're not alone. So in our instance, and what I mean by that is like in our instance, the XC that was here, because it's 90%, obviously we're mostly flat.
Sure.
So the XC that was here was very much these old guys and gals that have just ridden the same trails for, I mean, people name dropping like, I built these trails 30 years ago with my toothpick, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been riding these same trails and they've been living on it, and they've been living on that sort of life. And then, most of the parks here. But what we've seen happen, certainly with us, is the Reb, like our bike park exists because we wanted to go out and we wanted to ride flow lines, and we had to figure out how to do it here. So disorganized into organized chaos somehow is where we went. So you guys aren't alone. It was the same sort of battle. Whereas we weren't able to build a lot of jumps or any kind of that stuff in the local areas, we kind of took it upon ourselves. But that same motion, like what you guys are doing, that same group now has gotten behind the ideas of that, and they're looking to how do we make the trails not just XC loops, but how can we make the most flowable version of that? So now we're even seeing on the Samba, our local chapter, on that side of things, we're seeing that shift occur. So it is interesting just to say that you're not alone on the side of like, I think progress comes with a price. Obviously, $75,000 is a big one, but progress comes with some price. And some of that is pissing some people off, but you're not doing it on purpose. It's the reality of the situation. Growth does not, I mean, everybody here is some level of athlete, you two more so than me. You don't grow without a little bit of stress, right? So you got to have that stress in order to get that growth. And so I think it's kind of an interesting model.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's totally valid. You're going to piss. I mean, and that was one of the things that we kind of worked through a little bit with even land managers, right? Is like, no matter what you do, if you rubber stamp this and say, yeah, you guys can go build these trails, you're going to piss some people off. If you don't rubber stamp it and say, no, absolutely not, take your $75,000 and go do something else with it, you're going to piss people off that way too. No matter what you do, you're making somebody unhappy. And so it's, a fine line to walk. And there are some things that, that we had proposed that we didn't get, and that's okay. And one of those was a climbing return trail. So we are sending people up like this, like gnarly, straight up the side of the mountain return trail. And it's like, oh, well, sorry guys, this one already existed and we didn't get approved for the other thing. So here's how you're going to get your laps in.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody else recently about some trail development, and they were talking about the potential for their return line is like a mile plus, but it's like 600 plus feet. And you're like, oh boy, you're just going straight uphill the entire time. Like just hold on for dear life. So,
yeah.
Let me ask you this, because I'm unfamiliar with it. So you guys actually probably have more of a traditional riding season in some ways. It can't be year round up there? I mean, I guess it could, or what is the situation there?
Yeah, it is and it isn't. Like we've already talked to Barry and his crew about potentially these two trails in particular, probably making, riding seasons, summer season only trails, because we've got a pretty wet winter. And so maybe, getting a chain with closed sign, not that prevents everybody from doing things, but like trying to, eliminate some of the wear and tear that you might put on them. But yeah, we get hit pretty hard during the winter time with a good bit of rain, and we don't have the friendliest trails for that. We've got, just the soil, the terrain tends to hold water pretty well, unfortunately. So you've got a lot of rock. And so the good news is that, yeah, if you want to go like climb over like one of the rocky trails in wet weather, you can. I mean, you have no traction and it sucks, but you could do that. But a lot of our other trails just, it takes them a day or two to dry out. And so if you get hit with like a week of rain, you're probably looking at another week or two before they're really dry.
Damn. we have sand here, so we can ride like
Yeah.
while it's raining.
Right.
It's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, well, and it's so frustrating because you go just like an hour or two south of us, you can go hit like Coldwater or Lake Gunnersville or some of these other places that have kind of sandy soil. And absolutely, you go ride them when they're pouring down rain and it's just fine. The only trail system that we have here that doesn't have a lot of mileage on it right now, but that's kind of in that same boat, is Chapman Mountain, which is one of the properties owned by the Land Trust of North Alabama. And Chapman is multi-purpose to include horses, so it's horse trails as well. And that soil tends to be just a little bit sandier, so it does tend to dry well. There's not a ton of trail on it yet, but they just bought like another 90 or so acres, like maybe a year and a half ago. And they are looking at developing that in the future. What's really cool is that some of these OG guys, right, there used to be on private property, some of the land that the Land Trust just acquired, there were moto trails, dirt bike trails that were put in on that side. And was ridden back in like the late 80s through early 90s, apparently. And then, so of course, mountain bikers found it and they were like, oh, heck yeah. So like early iterations before like the club existed here, you'd have these guys who would get together on Wednesday nights and go do group rides and races and things out on that property. And then apparently like four-wheelers and things found it and tore things up. And the land owners said, no, hey, you guys got to get out of here. So that disappeared about the mid 90s, I guess. And
it'd be great to talk to one of those guys about their mindset of like, let's just go ride. Who cares? Oh wait, we have those guys. We have some of those guys that ride with us.
So that got clear cut by I guess the private owners sold it to somebody, or maybe just decided to have it clear cut maybe 12 years ago or so, and then they sold it to the Land Trust. And so the Land Trust now has this whole property that the trails aren't really there anymore, but it's it's a bunch of scrub, and so it's ripe for putting something back out there, knowing that it drains better than a lot of other places here in town.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
And so would that be, that's an addition, or the only miles that you guys have on Montesano and that, or do you have other trails?
No,
I'm completely dumb to it.
No, that's okay. We've got 150 miles worth of trails in total here in the Huntsville area.
That's awesome. We had no idea.
Yeah. So Montesano itself has 60 of those, I think, probably, between the Land Trust property and the state park property. And some of those are old school hiking trails. You could take a bike on them, but you're in for a long slog. People do. I mean, I think I've ridden most every trail that exists on Montesano at least once, and some of them maybe one and done. But then in addition to that, you can get a rec pass to get on to Redstone Arsenal, the military base here. And Redstone Arsenal has like another 25-30 miles worth of trails out there.
Do you guys maintain those as well, or do they do it?
Them. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
There are a couple of guys there who were mountain bikers that built most of them. And so there's a group called the Redstone Arsenal Mountain Peddlers Ramp that does a lot of the work out there. But we helped with the signage. We improved the signage out there a couple of years ago, and kind of helped to do the maintenance out there. That's a fun place because you can go night riding there year round if you want to, and that's
awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Then we've got two different ACA or NICA trail systems that we've built over the years, one at the Space and Rocket Center and one at an old municipal golf course that we and the Huntsville Track Club, the runners community, petitioned the city to turn into a multi-use facility. So that's now got like a running track, cross-country running track, and mountain bike trails that we use for the ACA races. And a few other like smaller systems here and there that are, again, mostly hiking trails that you can put wheels on though.
So now random question, because that's how we operate and that's how my brain works.
Yeah.
So we started this convo with you talking about, you did equestrian. Is that like dressage type stuff? Like what were you doing?
Let me preface this first. Drew and I are pretty much horse experts. We filmed a commercial last week of trick horseback riders.
Yeah.
That makes us experts.
Yeah, they shoot arrows.
They shoot arrows. They're awesome. They're great.
Okay, no, that's fun. I've got a few friends here in town who are into the mounted archery thing. That's a really cool thing.
They're very good.
Heck yeah. So I didn't do that.
So what I was going to say is, okay, that's what I was wondering. How did it translate there? I mean, you talked about it briefly, but did that skill set translate over to a bike? Do you feel like the handling came over or no?
So I did hunter jumpers, and jumpers and a little bit of 3-day eventing like cross country and dressage and things like that. So things where your horse is off the ground and many feet in the air. And the balance and coordination and just, you've got your body bike separation, right? And just kind of like where your center of gravity is and things like that, and independent movement compared to, what's underneath you. All of that translates quite well. A lot of your body positioning really is very similar.
That's cool. That's what I told Dale that we were watching one of the guys that is part of that horse team is going to come ride with us, and he's ridden before. I was like, he's going to shred because he's just going to understand that side of it.
Yeah.
Let me ask this, and again, if this question makes you uncomfortable and you want me to cut it, I will, but I think it's relevant. So it's very fascinating to me that in a very male dominated hobby, sport, whatever you want to call it, because I mean, unless you're getting paid as an athlete, we can say it's a sport overall, but really,
but it's hobby.
Chapter is more right.
That's right.
How did you work your way up to? I mean, obviously, I'm not trying to separate you, so I'm trying to keep it as an equal statement. But like, you powered your way through that. Like, how did you get to that spot? Because it is often, at least in my experience, I've observed that in multiple groups, it is a good old boys club, and you power through that. Like, how does that happen? How do you get to that spot as a woman fighting up that chain? Because there's that good old boys club that's been there for a minute.
Sure. Yeah. Golly, I guess I have been lucky in that, I don't know. I have a lack of ability to say no to anything. And I like knowing how things work.
That's why she's on the podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we got you.
No, this was something, I'll be honest. I was like, all right, the Rebellion guys, this is what we need to get people pumped about our new trails. These guys are awesome. Yeah. So, but Marianne Swanstrom, who's actually the current president of SORBA, was the president of HAMR or SORBA Huntsville, right? For 5 years, I think. And so had already kind of like cracked that code and did a phenomenal job when she was the president here. And so she brought me in as our social committee chair. And so I held that position for a few years. And from there, just, anytime anybody needed something done, I was just the person doing it. So, that kind of became a scope creep. And here we are. I'm now the president.
No, it comes back to it. Though. It sounds like it's grit and determination, which I think I think it comes from the fact that that you're an athlete at heart, regardless of gender or whatever. I mean, you're an athletic minded human being. So it's like, I've got grit and determination. I'm going to power through and figure this out. I think it's awesome, not to elevate like, a woman, but as a human being that powered through to get to that. Cause I think it's always a fascinating thing. Anybody that wants to take on a leadership role in the capacity that you're referring to and what you have to deal with.
A volunteer leadership role.
Yeah.
To be
right. To be fair. Oh yeah.
Very thankless.
And I don't know if you guys get this, like the number of people that I've had ask me like, well, is that your job? And I just kind of have to laugh like, no, I spend money to do this.
Yeah.
I don't make money doing this.
Right. I completely understand that.
Yeah. That's just, the attitude kind of has to be, well, I can always just work harder to make these things happen if that's what it's going to take to make them happen. Or maybe they don't matter that much and I'm not going to put the effort in and then they might not happen. Yeah.
Very athlete mentality, very athletic mentality. That's my mentality for everything. Like if it doesn't fit forced and if it doesn't fit still, then I'm done with it.
I'm
out.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's you guys are college athletes. I was a fat lead. So I different category altogether. So let's jump back in. So for the money, like raising money for this kind of stuff is tricky. Like I know that, Bump uses like the bump and grind that just happened where you guys were talking. That's a fundraiser element. They do other things. They got a bike raffle, whatever. I mean, what did you do to raise that kind of money? Like obviously you said some grants involved, but outside of grants, I imagine you did have to get some external money. I mean, how do you go about doing that? Like, what is that process like to build these trails?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of it was grants. We had an athletic brewing company grant that I think was either $20,000 or $25,000 that came in a few years ago. We used that for one or two other trails a year and a half ago or something, but had some leftovers from that. That the plan was to use it towards this. We got a Fats Factory grant. And then most recently, in fact, it's still going. So, little plug, we've got an IMBA digging grant that's going until the end of this month. And so that, I think we probably set some kind of record. We fully funded. So, it's a $5,000 donation matching. So we raise five, they'll match five. But you can set a goal of whatever you want to set, right? So I think we set a goal of $10,000 that we were going to raise, and then they would match the five. We met that $5,000 matching goal in less than 24 hours, and then met the $10,000 goal in less than the first week. I think, yeah. So, but a lot of that was, we weren't looking necessarily even for monies for the entire build, because we knew we were going to have to fund some of that ourselves. And if we set some like $60,000 goal, everybody was going to go, man, that's like pie in the sky. No, they're not going to get there. I can't contribute enough to make a difference there. So we looked specifically at our wall ride that's going in and said, okay, that's going to be $15,000 to $16,000, $17,000, somewhere in that range. That's doable. And that's something that very tangible, that you can say, hey, you guys, we want to build this wall ride. This is what it's going to cost. We need your help getting there. And people can like say, oh yeah, I helped to make that happen. And it feels a little more tangible than a little bit, of a large pie in the sky goal. So I think that's a big part of it, is just like, taking small bites of the elephant, and setting reasonable and obtainable goals that people kind of feel like they can be a real part of. But we do also put on races every summer. They're a big membership drive for us, is really how they started. This is our 14th year of those. And we get sponsors for those. We do end up with some proceeds that come out of those every year, above and beyond expenses. And so we're shoveling all of that into these projects. And we brought back a fall festival last fall, very first time ever. After like a 10-year gap, I guess, and kind of decided this is going to be another one of those big opportunities. Not membership focused. It's just going to be like, let's go have fun on trails focused, and see if we can generate some revenue that way as well. And that was a huge success. I think we raised like something like $12,000, $15,000 off of that festival too. Yeah.
And I know this is going to get a biased answer, but I would ask that hopefully you would, throw as straightforward as possible. I mean, the biggest challenge that we think that exists is really inside of the community stuff. You guys have trails, you have the elevation, you have all the right chemistry for certainly tech trails. Now we're introducing a whole new, some flow trail, but the bigger part of it has always been, at least in my observation, and Dale's too, as part of the process of the show, has been the community. I mean, what is you were at 400, which is a big group, but what is the community like? I mean, how are you guys able to, like, do you have, a lot of times what we find is, and I won't name any names, but other chapters, like, yeah, there's a core group of people at the end of the day, but there's a decent community behind it. And that's always the case. There's idiots that will give away time for nothing, which is like the majority of the people I know. But I mean, what is the community like up there? Like, do you have bike LBS support? Do the bike shops help? What is the community like inside of that way?
Sure. Yeah. No, that's really true. And that's something that I think, you talk to any chapters, any organization, it's not just mountain biking, it's everything, right? And it doesn't matter how big your organization is, you're just going to have a very core group of people who actually gets things done and makes things happen. So we've got probably between like a dozen and 20 people who are, I would call the regulars, the people that you put out a notice that says, hey, it's Monday evening. Instead of doing our regular group ride, we got to get this wall finished, you guys. So we're going to do that instead. And if we've got time after, we're going to go ride. And exactly the dozen people who are going to show up and work on that. They're the same group that shows up and does everything. And maybe if it's something exciting enough that gets a little bit bigger and you get a few more people to show up because it's a project that they're interested in, but mostly it is absolutely a core group. we do have some of our local bike shops who are able to be really generous as far, well, you know, they'll sponsor the races, they'll sponsor the fall festival. Most of the shops are able to be a little bit more generous with things like raffle items, right? Because it's easier to give items as opposed to cash. So we do have a raffle that we moved to the fall festival last year. It used to be at the last race, and our races are on Thursday evenings. And I tell you what, you get done racing, you get done with podiums, and then you're also shoving like a raffle. And I wasn't getting home until like 1 a.m. on a Thursday and going to work on Friday. So
Yeah,
I was ready to move that to some other time. And so the fall festival just made a whole lot of sense. And it's worked. It worked well there last year. We'll do it again this year. But yeah, the local bike shops are supportive. You know, we've got our Tuesday night kids rides that we do during the summer, and we ask the bike shops to help, provide, cookies and treats. You know, we tried popsicles, and unfortunately it doesn't matter what cooler. I don't know anybody who has a cooler good enough that your popsicles are still going to be like not just melted pools of goo, by the time you're done with a summer night ride. So, we've found that other treats work better, but the bike shops are good about those and will donate those for us. So that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fascinating. I always love to have those conversations just because every community is different. There's pluses and
Mhm.
minuses, and you know, we talk about ours very differently than most because
Very aggressively. We talk about it aggressively because I'm aggressive about it.
Yeah. I mean,
we have a different circumstance though. I mean,
We don't have trails.
yeah, I mean, we
That's
rebelled.
hard.
We literally rebelled and just said
Yeah.
we're doing our own thing. We have no support from anyone but ourselves. We're privateers essentially. Like,
And the funny, we say it all the time, but we rebelled against ourselves because I'm on the board of our IMBA chapter, helping to maintain our public trails as well. So it's like, but like Drew said earlier, our community strength of what we did with the rebellion has now caused the like relationship bond to be so strong that now like we're willing to take that emotion that we have, we want to share it with everyone else, right? Like we want
Sure.
other people to feel the like the mental man help we get from each other, like mentally over the bikes part is way more valuable than anything we'll get anywhere else. And so like we want to share that with like other people, you know, like
Yeah.
so we want to take somebody asked the other day about the rebellion as a location and said something. I was like, no, it's a mindset. At this point, it's our mindset. So the rebellion isn't a location. We can go wherever we want to go with it. So like some people have said our community is really rad and fun and cool. And it's like, yeah, because we have to, because the trails aren't that fun, right? Like the fun is the community.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
they are fun. Don't get me wrong. I downplay it because we've ridden the 9 miles of public trails 4,727 times, according to Strava. But that is how it's grown. Like now our community goes to other places like Bump and Grind or Bogue Chitto this weekend, and you see like everybody kind of gravitates to this emotional and energetic energy. And I
Right.
think maybe that's what Drew was alluding to. Like, do you guys have that group of people that is like the magnet? Like, I'm
Sure.
guessing it's probably the 12 people you were talking about.
Right. It is.
Question, by the way.
Yeah. No, but that's a good question. Yeah, that's exactly. It's, you know, the group rides and the hangouts after the group rides are what brought most of those people in, right? It was going out and riding your bikes and then going and sitting around like a fire ring with beers. And we've got like one of our OG guys, Jerry, who is he's in his 70s now. I won't give away his exact age, but yeah, he's the oldest member of our community. He has like a van that's loaded down with intense bikes, right? And he's just willing to give anybody like, you know, hey, yeah, you didn't bring a bike, or hey, you want to give one of my bikes a try, whatever. They're all like, you know, Franken biked out. He's done some fun things with them. And he'll bring guacamole and some roasted peanuts and like pop popcorn over the fire and just like hang out afterwards. And that's, I think a lot of people bond over that, over the actual, I mean, because that's what we are. We're mountain bikers, right? Like the rest is kind of superfluous if you don't have that as your starting point.
It really is.
It really is, right? So you build the community there, and then it becomes a lot easier to coax people into doing the other things. You can be like, yeah, let's take this same like, chill, cool vibe and go now let's do some trail work with it. And they're like, well, that sounds like work. It's like, yeah, but it'll be fun because it's people, and sometimes that works.
We all try that. Yeah, we've tried it too. We even had at one point there was a no dig, no ride policy that lasted like 5 seconds because these people are they're not going to dig.
Right.
They literally though they would be like, here's an extra $5. Does that help?
We let people pay out.
Yeah.
And let's be really honest, some of them you don't want digging.
No, fair point.
It's definitely true.
One of the things I wanted to ask in terms of the new trail system or the new 2 trails that you have, let's talk through those a little bit. Obviously, when I look up there and when I look on MTB Project or Trail Forks or whatever, there's a lot of red, there's a lot of black. Yeah. That's fine. What are these trails going to be? Because if it's that kind of scenario, are you going to have a green line? Or is it just going to be blue and black? Or is it going to be black to double red, diamond, purple hat?
No, that's such a good point. We've got so much black and red, and it is all of the old hiking trails. So these 2 are going to be one of the lines. We've got names now. Bluebell Holler is our blue-green trail. So it's going to start green. At both of them, everything is rollable, right? Barry's crew is very anti like gaps, mandatory features, things like that, like things that don't have go arounds, and especially in a state park that only made too much sense anyway. But that green line is going to start green, and then you get towards the bottom, I would guess about maybe 2/3 of the way down, and it's got a split. You've got like an alt line. So the blue alt line stays to the left, and that's where you're going to hit the wall. And then the green line wraps around to the right and finishes you like around this really pretty area. But definitely green. I mean, it's a downhill flow line trail, so it's got jumps and things, but it's all rollable. And then the black line, really the only difference is that it's steeper with bigger features. But again, everything's rollable. It's got this really cool like faux on off that we've put in. Shark fin towards the top, just some really cool stuff on it, but you can skip it or you can roll it. So yeah,
one of the things I think is really you teased on this earlier, and it was to that point, you describing that adds to the question for me, is that you have a community, and maybe like us, we were underserved. We were an underserved element in the community. We didn't just want to pedal. We wanted to, some of us out of laziness, not me, not Dale, some other people that listen to this podcast, some don't even listen, but they just don't want to pedal. They just want to ride down hills.
Sure.
But that is a community. And if you look at it, like the trend isn't, I mean, XC will always be here, but the trend that I see the most of is like flow trail downhill,
shuttles, right? Now this isn't going to be shuttleable, obviously, but I guess you could make it if you just kept going. You could get down to a road at some point and then just, I don't know, shuttle back into the park. You may have to explain that to the attendants at the gate eventually, but
right.
But yeah, I mean, that is absolutely a community. We tried doing the shuttle thing. I know that Bump's got like a monthly shuttle group that they do, and on the land trust side of the property, you do have some stuff that's pretty well shuttleable. And Bump is blessed in that like all of the roads that they would be on for their shuttle days are contained within a state park, so like your liability is fairly minimum. We're out on public roads; some of them are pretty sketchy. And so when the guys who were really invested in doing the shuttles with HAMR kind of like left, and I think they still do kind of like a bro thing outside of our organization, and that's fine. So without being able to cater specifically to the shuttle group, we are still trying to offer them that experience, and so this is super easy. Oh, who do you have there?
That's Birdie the dog.
God, I'm not blonde because that would look really weird.
She can't like she won't look at cameras. That's as far as I can hear her go. I've been out of town, so she's just very like needy.
That's okay. I've got headphones and a mic, so you can't hear her, but my cat's been sitting like at my feet meowing at me basically the entire time. Like, why are you not paying attention to me? So
no, right on.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's trying to cater to a different group of people who are a growing percentage of the population. And, you know, I don't know that we've gotten a ton of them out to help with the work on the builds, but they'll surely ride them once they're here.
Yeah, look, that's part of the process though. Like, it's proof of concept. One thing I've noticed about mountain bikers, or two things. One, they're insanely cheap for some reason. They'll spend
It's true.
10 grand on a bike and then complain about every other penny afterwards.
That's
And
right.
want their socks
About
from
their
Emblem.
$4 beers. Yes.
And their free socks
And
from
their free
Emblem,
socks from
to
Emblem.
Dale's point.
Make sure you get those.
Get your dadgum
Oh
free
man.
socks.
Hey, the new ones are really cool. Do you guys have the skeleton unicorn socks?
I got them.
No, I never get the socks. They never send me the socks. I see get the socks.
So my boyfriend has had this
Handmade.
exact same experience. I don't know. He's like, I renewed my membership like 2 months ago. I still don't have socks. I'm like, what don't tell you?
3 years. 3 years I've been an Emba member and I've gotten one pair of socks. One.
Right. Well, that
And we
sounds like
even
you're
had,
doing something wrong.
Yeah, probably.
Somebody
We had
doesn't like
Philip
you.
on from Sorba.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had Philip on, and Philip couldn't even help me get socks. So I'm just whatever.
What
I'm
good
one of
is
those
he?
complainers
He
now.
can't
Like,
even
"Guys,
get you socks.
what do they do with my money? Not send me socks. I'm just kidding. I don't believe
So
that.
wrong.
Let me ask you this though: when is that projected? And I know you got to give a little bit of a political answer in terms of like timeline. But when are those trails projected to open? Obviously, most of us want you to say tomorrow, but that's not going to happen. So when are they scheduled to open?
Grand opening is scheduled for the 30th of this month.
Oh wow, it's right there.
That's right there. Yeah, seriously. They are probably rideable this week. In fact, I know that a lot of it is rideable
I'm
this
going to
week.
cut that out.
Yeah. Don't look. Yeah, absolutely. But grand opening is the 30th. We've got the state park that's going to do a ribbon cutting. We've got a pavilion booked. So we'll have like, I don't know, a cookie cake that's got the names of the trails on it or something. And, you know, like some Athletic Brewing Company beers and things like, cause you know, they were one of our
I crush it. I love it.
Absolutely.
I love
Right.
it.
Yeah, totally. And things like that. And yeah, we're going to get out there on the 30th. I think we're going to do a little bit of a soft opening for like our most involved volunteers and some of our big donors, before that, to just kind of give them a pre-ride opportunity for being as involved as they have been. But that opening date, and like, actually the boyfriend is working on an invite right now that, we can shove out to everybody, hopefully this week. But I'd love to get Sorba chapters up here. I've already like talked to Philip about it. Like, hey man, bring the Sorba tent. Come on down. So yeah, we're looking to have a big party on the 30th. Hopefully the weather cooperates.
No, I hear you. Have you have you publicly professed the names of the trails yet, or can we?
Yeah.
Okay, drop.
So we did, we had our donors actually through our dig-in campaign. We approached them and said, hey, what do you want the names of these things to be? And then from there, we got like a list of like 30 names that they submitted, right? And one of them was like the MacMahon Trail or something. And I was like, somebody wants to. So we narrowed that down to like a dozen acceptable names that would also be like appropriate to put in the state park. Some of them were not.
Awesome.
Yeah, we know. Trust me, we totally know.
Whole trail system.
Whole trail system at the RIP is not appropriate for.
I mean, like, well, but then you go to like Windrock and you ride things named Reach Around and stuff, and that's fine too, right? You know, it's okay.
Yeah.
Just maybe not for the state park. I don't know. Anyway, so from that dozen names, we farmed that out to membership and wound up with Bluebell Holler is going to be the name of our green blue trail, and Full Monty is, which is risque enough, I suppose.
It's good.
Yeah, Full Monty, spelled like Monte Sano. Is the name of the black trail.
That's some good merch. That's good merch opportunity right there with the Full Monty type
absolutely.
bit. Where did the Bluebell? Is that just for I'm assuming ice cream? Is that
no?
The Bluebell
actually. So the trail that both of these spit out onto is Sinks Trail, which is one of those old school hiking trails that's well loved by everybody. And that lower Sinks area that the trails spit out onto, right around like early mid-spring gets a ton of bluebells and trilliums and things like that blooms on it. So we painstakingly made sure that where these two spit out is right next to the beginning of the bluebell patches and not in them. I think we even had a couple of volunteers that, like, in one or two areas, because we did start these builds around bluebell season. There was a small patch that looked like it might be affected, and so we relocated them. And that was, you know, again, because I love them too, right? But so many people like the pretty flowers, and, you know, we didn't want to be, oh, those damned mountain bikers, like, you know, fucking stuff up again for for everybody, like, you know, trampling all the bluebells to put in their rowdy downhill trails. But yeah, so that's kind of a nod to the fact that that's where it spits out.
I mean, I listen, I'm with you. I think I like flowers too. I mean, it's the whole idea for me of I want to ride the whole enchilada just because I want to see the different ecosystems on the way down.
Right.
And like, I'm not going to go down and try and like, I raced down it in 2.5 hours and did like, I will probably be the worst person to go ride with because I'm going to stop. I'm a cinematographer by trade. Yeah, I can't. Why would I waste that opportunity?
Yeah.
Get the vibe and then be like, okay, vibe's good, photo time or whatever, that kind of thing. Is there anything else that we need to know about or you want to plug within the last couple of minutes here? Just shout out stuff. Is there,
Sure.
if you want to shamelessly plug your own Instagram, we don't care, whatever you want to do.
I mean, yeah, definitely the image digging campaign is still good until the 30th. So you better believe that, like, even on that grand opening day, I'm going to be like shaking a bucket at people and going, you know, you can still contribute. So you can get to that from our Instagram page, Facebook page, website, right? It's all HAMR, HAMR, HSV. Right. That'll get you to anything, website, etc. Other than that, like, if you can't make it for the grand opening, because I know that's coming up really fast, we do have our fall festival that we're going to put on again this year. And you better believe we're going to feature the new trails like really, really big during our fall fest. That's October 11th through the 13th. Some of that info is starting to make it onto our website. Obviously, you can't actually book it yet, but like Monte Sano has some amazing camping. They've got, you know, RV hookups, primitive camping, cabins, everything, right? Just right there in the state park, which makes it really ideal for folks to come in from out of town. But they do book up fast. So I've already kind of started telling, like, even my locals here, like, hey, if you want to stay up there for the weekend, you better get on that fast, because that is a holiday weekend as well. It's Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day weekend. So it'll get booked up pretty quickly, I think. But you know, come ride in the fall, which is kind of the perfect weather to be on the trails here. It's your best chance of not getting hit with like crappy summer showers or like the winter doldrums of rain.
Last question. Do you guys have banana spiders up there?
No, thank God. I grew up in South Louisiana. I grew up in South Louisiana. I know all about banana spiders, and no, thank you.
There's nothing worse than the little tick, tick, ticks of their little feet on your helmet. And then you see their little legs come over the top like that.
No.
Dale it doesn't bother him. He's like, whatever. They're crawling all over him. Me, I go through helmets.
Now,
I say this about spiders, and I have said this since day one. I would rather take a spider to the face than ride behind someone. That's how much I enjoy the spiders. They're my friends.
That's hilarious. Okay. No,
my other friends are behind me.
Other spiders, nothing as big as the banana spiders, but we do have other spiders. And actually the Redstone Arsenal trails are rather infamous for just being coated with webs. Like, you know, you'll have guys that, just look like, you know, this is their Halloween costume, and they've got like webs and spiders dripping off their helmets when you get to the, you know, end of a run or something. But nothing as big or gross looking as the banana spiders.
People, if you don't live with them, and now there's those East Coast devil spiders that fly. I'm done with that. Yeah, they're up in your neck of the woods. You need to be ready for it. Yeah.
Oh, God.
That's just what I needed.
That's what they said. I saw it on Reddit. So who knows how true it is.
All right.
All right. Well, I guess with that, we'll close things out, and then we'll circle back. Make sure, and so just one more time, the Instagram and everything for people to follow is at HAMR, HAMR. Is that right?
That's right. HAMR HSV for Huntsville.
Got it.
So, yep. Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Yeah.
Very cool. And one last plug. If you have not been to Huntsville, just to go drink a bunch of beers in an old school, you should go up there for that whole place because it was so rad.
Oh, Campus 805 is amazing. Yeah. Did you guys find the speakeasy?
Oh, we did.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. So yeah,
There's an event. We couldn't hang out.
Like
Yeah.
behind a row of lockers, like an old school like locker area, right? So totally worth it. Yeah. Campus 805 is amazing. And right
it's
next to
crazy.
that is one of our favorite breweries. We've got Back 40, which is from Birmingham, has a location now in South Huntsville here. But right in that Campus 805 complex, Inner Space, who's always amazing to us, is right over there too. So yeah.
Right on.
It's a good time.
Last thing before we go, best cheeseburger in Huntsville.
Oh, that's a good question. I'm actually going to say Back 40 would be like my top pick. But you are also talking to somebody who doesn't eat a whole lot of meat, so I may not be the best person.
Okay, but that's good enough. Back 40 is respectable. Back 40 is respectable.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's going to do it. Let me.
Hey, thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you for hanging out with us. We appreciate it.
Meet Drew, you virtually at least, and Dale, it was great to meet you at Bump and Grind. That was awesome.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Cool.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm just kidding. All right. Well, that was Erin MacMahon. Fantastic conversation. Very interesting. Very excited to go up there and finally ride. Excited about the new trails. I think it's fascinating to talk about on this show. Obviously, community matters, but they're not just singling out one group and paying dividends, or they're trying to make sure they have the flow riders and the other people that want to ride other stuff too. And I think that's a good example for lots of organizations. Consider everybody, not just your primary or whatever, just nicely considering everybody to ride.
Yeah. I thought though it was a great conversation for us because we are idiots when it comes to Huntsville.
100%.
It was
beer places. We know those.
Yeah, we know where the beer places are. That's for sure. But I was asking questions that I literally didn't know the answer to.
Yeah, same.
So it was nice to have somebody on like that.
And it's cool to see somebody like kick ass and climb the ranks the way she did. Like, again, not as a woman, as a human being. So like badass, good for her. That's a lot of work to put it in there. And I think as we build a relationship with her, we'll have more and more dialogue. I think it would be interesting to bring her back on. And I have more questions for her, but I want to be respectful of her time. And she's a president, so they all have a little bit of an agenda. So I can't.
She got her one out of the way.
Yeah.
We let Chase have one.
Yeah, Chase had one.
You got one.
Yeah, that was it.
Next one's going to be a lot less professional.
Yep, 100%. We gave you the good one. Now, when you come back on, you can plug your crap for about 3 minutes. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You need to come. She has to come ride with us, though.
Yeah, you do need to come ride.
Then you can come ride and get the full Reb experience.
Yeah, and enjoy the jank.
The jankiness.
You'll probably come down for Jank Fest. I think you'll be on the Jank Fest roster. All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of Ride the Rebellion Podcast. Just remember what Dale Boyd says.
Go to Huntsville and ride if you haven't, and if you don't want to ride, just drink beers.
I'ma get it, you know I be on a what? Yeah.